Hello, Chris Godinez, licensed professional counselor, also the host of We Need to Talk on every Sunday at noon here on YouTube, and then I post it up to Facebook of the same name. This video is for educational and informational purposes only. If you feel you need a therapist, please go to Google, type in therapy, your city, Psychology Today will pop up, click on that, and it will have qualified therapists in your area. Also, the views and opinions stated herein are mine and mine alone. They do not represent the ACA, the APA, or any other damn therapist for that matter. Boom, shakalaka done. Okay, so let me get some stuff out of the way. So I am not going to be touring anytime soon, guys. I am so sorry. Trust me. I would. You have no idea how much I miss traveling. Oh my God. Anyway, so I'm not going to be traveling anytime soon. So Chris and I were talking, and we've decided to step away from having a manager just because I don't really need one right now because I'm not going anywhere. So if you have any questions or if you have suggestions for future tour dates when we get this stupid virus handled, please send them to chrisgodinez.com. There is a form on there you can fill out, an email form, and all of that sort of good stuff. So all inquiries are now going to go to chrisgodinez.com. That's where I want you guys to go. So I want to thank Chris. He's been awesome. So hopefully someday I'll need a manager again, but right now, not so much. So we've canceled the Portland one. You should be getting a refund from that. If you don't, please let me know. So there is that. There was only one person signed up for that one because of COVID. Hate COVID. Can I tell you how much I hate this stupid thing? I hate this stupid thing, and it's affecting people I love. So I am not happy. So, all right. Today we are going to talk about triggers. But before we dive into triggers, hold on. I wanted to say again, I am licensed in Arizona. I can only counsel people in Arizona. If you are outside of Arizona, the girl you want is Susanna Quintana at SusannaQuintana.com. She can go across state lines. She can go internationally. She is a life coach. She is a narcissist expert, narcissist recovery person, because she has been there, done that. She's had family members that were that way, and she was in a messy, nasty divorce, so she can help you with all of that. So there is that. That is the person to contact. Okay, so also, if you are thinking of divorcing, you want to get Splitting by Randy Krieger and Bill Eddy. Excellent. Excellent book. It basically lays out everything I've been talking about. It's like, they're going to do this. They're going to do that. They're going to do parental alienation. They're going to try to bankrupt you. They're going to try to do this. They're going to try to do that. Great book. Get it if you're thinking about divorcing the person. Also, my 2 books are available on Amazon and on Audible. So there is that. Shahida Arabi's book is coming out. Her new one is coming out in October. I believe you can pre-order that on Amazon. If you want her older book, it's Healing the Adult Children of Narcissists, and great book. Love Shahida Arabi. She's amazing. Okay, I think that's all the announcements I needed to do right now. Okay, so let's get into triggers. So people have been asking me, it's like, well, you know, sometimes I can handle some of the triggers, but then others hit me and I'm like blindsided. So I wanted to talk about that. So first, let's talk about PTSD. So when we come out of an abusive relationship, we've got PTSD. Now ours is complex with this letter C in front of it, complex, because it was over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. So, you know, it's not like, so traditional PTSD or regular PTSD is when it's a one-time event. You know, you're in a car accident, you're in a motorcycle accident, you see a robbery, your life is threatened, you know, that type of thing, like a one-time event, right? So I don't think when they were writing all this stuff out that they understood that when somebody's in an abusive relationship, it's not a one-time event, it's daily. So it's complex. It happens over and over and over. So with PTSD, you develop a bunch of kind of maladaptive ways of trying to cope, and being highly sensitive or highly aware or hypervigilant is one of them. So let's talk about that. So hypervigilance is when, okay, so the average Joe, you know, goes about their day, kind of is aware of their, you know, surroundings, et cetera, et cetera. Somebody who's been through trauma is hyper vigilant. I know police officers are this way. I know military are this way. I know survivors of abuse are this way. So we're constantly, it's like periscope is up and it never goes down. And we are constantly going, where's the danger? Where's the danger? Where's the danger? Where's the danger? Right? And that's what keeps us safe. That's what's kept us safe in the past. So we had to be hypervigilant. So like, for example, when we're with An abuser, there's no consistency. So one day you could walk in and go, good morning. And they will say, oh, good morning. And then the next day you go, good morning. And they'll look at you and go, what does that mean? And you just know that you are in for hell on earth. So there was no consistency. There was no safety. So we had to read the room. We had to read the abuser. We had to stay one step ahead of them in order to not be beaten or yelled at or demeaned or put down or whatever. So we developed this sense of heightened awareness, of this heightened sense of hypervigilance, like, okay, where's the danger? 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 All the time. So that unfortunately causes us to see a lot of triggers. Now, what is a trigger? So a trigger is anything that reminds us, our amygdala, of our abusive situation. So going backwards a little bit, when we are abused and we have heightened awareness, we have hypervigilance, right? Our amygdala, okay, this little guy sits about an inch inside of the ears, okay? This is our fight, flight, freeze, or fawn center. Problem with this guy is he's stupid. He cannot understand the difference between a thought about abuse, actual abuse or threat, daydreaming about it, which is like, okay, so people are like, well, what do you mean? So how many times have you imagined, me because I'm weird, a zombie apocalypse, right? And what you would do. And pretty soon your heart is racing and your breath is getting shallow and because your body is responding as if that thought were real. Okay. So that's what our bodies do. That's what the amygdala does, is that when we have a threat, even if it's just a thought, the body starts kicking into survival mode and starts responding appropriately. So this little guy cannot tell the difference between a real threat and a thought about a real threat. It also cannot tell the difference between something we just see, or we just hear, or we smell, or we taste, or we sense, or we feel. It cannot tell the difference between those triggers, because those can all be triggers, and reality. So this little guy is all here now, here now, here now, here now, here now. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Right? So this is the problem. This is basically where your triggers happen. So this guy senses a threat, real or imagined, right? Real or imagined. And this guy goes unglued and tells the hippocampus, hypothalamus, oh my God, we're in danger. We need cortisol. We need that stress hormone. We need to tense up to get ready to fight, flight, freeze like a bunny rabbit and let the predator walk on by, or fawn, give into the predator so that they do not harm us. Okay, so this is also part of the panic attack. But this is also part of triggers. So we're hyper alert to triggers. So a trigger is anything emotionally, mentally, physically, smell, sight, sound, touch, feel, that reminds us of our abuse. And some of the more obvious ones are easier to deal with. So it gets very, what's the word I'm looking for? It kind of comes out of left field when it's an emotional one, when it's an emotional trigger, or when it's one of the ones that you weren't really thinking about. So oftentimes what people will tell me when they come in for the first few times, they're having tons of panic attacks. Okay, well, what is the trigger? And they'll look at me like, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, well, so now we need to start practicing mindfulness. What were you thinking right before you noticed that you were holding your breath? So let me give you a good example. So I was watching Rocket Man, the story about Elton John, and there are several scenes in there with his dad, who was, military. My dad was military, and the dad was abusive. He was neglectful and abusive, and he basically substituted his new family and treated, Elton John like doo-doo. So there were several scenes in there where he was just emotionally, verbally, just, oh my God, awful. And my poor husband leans over to me and puts his hand on my thigh. And he's like, are you breathing? Because apparently I had and I stopped breathing. Why? Fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. If I could have, I would have run out of the room when that asshole started talking. Why? Because it reminded inner child of my dad. And that's a trigger, and then I have to go, okay, brain, it's a movie. This asshole cannot come through the television set and harm me. and I would probably kill him if he did. So, it's like, do you see where I'm going with that? It's so those are triggers. Those are triggers. So you have to be aware of what are you thinking? What are you feeling? What was the trigger? So for me, it was watching a military guy that reminded me of my dad say the exact same nasty fucking things that my dad used to say. And that was enough to send me into a minor panic attack. I was holding my breath and I was well on my way. So those are triggers. So you have to stop and figure out, what is the trigger? What did you see? What did you hear? What did you smell? What did you taste? What did you feel? What did you think? What did you think? Those are the hard ones. So sometimes, again, it's the stuff that's running in the back of our heads, and it's not always the internal critic. So sometimes it's like thoughts that we just pop in and we're not even aware of them, that trigger us into having that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response. So a trigger can be anything, literally. And it's not always as dramatic as what I was just describing, going into a panic attack. It can be subtle. It can be, okay, let's say we use a trigger where you guys had good times, right? And it starts leading you down the primrose path of, oh, but it was such a great relationship at that time and everything was wonderful and da-da-da. And what was the trigger for that? What was it? What were you thinking? Oh, well, we used to fill in the blank. We used to go to this restaurant. We used to watch these certain kind of movies. We used to have this certain kind of in-joke. We used to, whatever that is. Does that make sense? So that can be a trigger as well. So triggers can be anything that reminds you of the abusive relationship. And it's really important. When I say mindfulness, people are kind of like, well, what do you mean? So mindfulness is really stopping and taking a breath and stepping back and going, okay, what was I thinking? What was I feeling? What was going on right before I started holding my breath? Or what was going on right before I started taking that walk down the primrose path? What was happening right before all of this stuff happened? And triggers can be anything. Like I said, it's emotional. It's a thought. It's seeing something. It's hearing something. It's, that type of thing. So there's a lot of triggers out there for us. And one of the things that really helps, listen to me now, believe me later, is to write them all down. What do you know your triggers are? Now, that does not mean go and avoid them. So that's one of the things of PTSD, is that we start becoming avoidant. We start, avoiding things that cause the panic attack, or that cause us to be uncomfortable, or that cause us to recognize a trigger and go, oh, okay, no, right? So, it's important not to avoid, because then your world starts becoming smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And now you're agoraphobic and you're not leaving the house. Well, we're kind of not leaving the house right now, but for different reasons. Anyway, the point being is that you don't want to do that. You want to hit these fuckers head on. So it's kind of, how do I explain this? It's like with triggers. Is it uncomfortable? Yes. What do we need to do? We need to confront those triggers head on. What are they? What are they? Because if we don't even know what the triggers are, we're just going to walk around being triggered all the time. Why? Hypervigilance, looking for danger, looking for danger, looking for danger. And that's not good for us. Why? Because if your amygdala is constantly telling you you're in danger, your body is constantly flooded with cortisol, and you are constantly on edge. And that's no way to live. No bueno. Don't let them win. Fuck that shit. So, okay. So what you want to do is you want to start identifying, what are your triggers? So for me, obviously, this is why I don't watch a whole lot of movies. So when everybody was like, oh, you got to watch Rocket Man, it's like, I know it was a good movie. I know, but I'm really avoiding because I know I'm going to get triggered. And I did watch it, and I did get triggered, and it was a great movie, and I really loved it. I also loved the one about Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody. That was a great one too. But yeah, it's like, you got to know what your triggers are. So for me, I don't like watching domestic violence stuff because, obviously it's what I hear all week long. And it also, if I'm dealing with military dad that reminds me of my dad, it's like, well, shit, it's like, no bueno. It's not a lot of fun. So you figure out what your triggers are. So, bullying. Bullying, seeing somebody bullied or hearing somebody bullied or whatever, that's a trigger too for a lot of people. Or certain words are a trigger, or certain phrases are a trigger. So whatever your abuser used to harm you, and if you hear it coming out of somebody else's mouth, you're immediately going to be like, it's like, wait a minute, who are you? What are you about? That kind of thing. So it's important to write down your triggers. And when you get triggered, it's important to figure out what was going on, what was happening, what were you thinking, and how do you deal with somebody who is in the middle of being triggered? Well, John did the absolute correct thing. He reached over, he put his hand on my leg, and he said, "Hey, are you breathing?" And the answer to that was a resounding fuck no, I'm not. So, you just remind them to breathe. Why? So let's go back to physiologically what happens in a panic attack. Okay, this guy gets triggered, hippocampus, hypothalamus release the cortisol, and then the body tenses up, and we stop breathing, and we hold our breath, and then our racing heart, racing thoughts, no oxygen, CO2 exchange. This tells another part of the brain, oh my God, we are going to die. There is the incorrect amount of oxygen, CO2, what the fuck? That then tells the adrenal gland that sits on top of the kidneys to release everything at once. So lovely. Now we have nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. We can't really kill people. Kind of not a cool thing to do anyway. But, it's like we're stuck, and now we've got all of this energy, right? And racing thoughts, pounding heart, and nowhere to go. And it usually turns in on us, or we go out with anger. So we either have a panic attack, right? The classical, I can't breathe, oh my God, and then we keel over, right? Or we turn into the Incredible Hulk and we start raging. Okay, so that's what happens. Those are both responses to fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So our body is doing that. So the best way to short circuit that whole thing is to breathe. Breathe. Remind people around you who are having triggers happening to breathe. They're safe. You give them some self-soothing stuff. It's safe. You're okay. We can turn off the TV, or we can walk away, or you're okay. Everything's all right. It's the same kind of idea. So when a trigger is happening for yourself, the best thing to do is to figure out where the heck this came from, because it's going to help you in the future. Now, in the moment, you're not going to be able to do that. Your brain is just going to be like, fuck you, bitch, get out of here. So what you're going to want to do is breathe. You're going to want to breathe. If there's one thing you remember to do in the middle of being triggered, it's breathe. Deep breath, hold it, and then let it out as slowly as you can. And then when you are safe, meaning you're either away from the trigger or you're calm and everything's okay, then I want you to go back and figure out what happened. What was the trigger? What triggered you? What made you think that you were in danger? What made you think you were about to be abused? What made you think that this was not safe? What was happening? What was going on? And it's really, really important to do that. So, like I said, for me, one trigger obviously is watching somebody being bullied, and not being able to do anything about it. Because if it had been in real life, I would have been like right in their face going, fuck you, bitch, shut the fuck up. You see where I'm going with that? I don't put up that crap from anybody. But when you're watching it on a screen and it's playing out and you're sitting there going, this poor little kid has no advocates. What the fuck? And what the fuck is the mother doing? Fuck you, bitch. Oh, she was a whore. Oh my God, don't get me started. Anyway, the point being is this poor little kid, Elton John, had nobody to advocate for him. And I was just like, because it reminded me of my childhood. So yeah, do you see where I'm going with that? So you figure out what the trigger is, and that will help you in the next time, so that when you are triggered, you can go, okay, we can turn the television off now. I need to go take a walk. Thank you. That kind of thing. Or, you just don't watch the movie or whatever. So triggers can come from anywhere. Okay, let's take gaslighting, for example. So one of the favorite tools of abusers is gaslighting, rewriting history, lying like a rug, right? So when you hear that come out of somebody else's mouth, there's a real good chance that you're going to fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Some people freeze, some people are just like triggered, boom, frozen, because they couldn't. Think of it this way, guys. None of the responses are bad. I really want everybody to understand this. It is just our knee-jerk reaction to danger, right? Me, I'm a fighter. So it's like, you get in my face, it's going to be gloves off and game on, bitch. So, but other people, they flee, and that's okay. And other people, they freeze, because that's the only response that was safe. So for example, when an abuser is just, there's no way out, right? You can't win, right? Like, they're, no matter what you say, no matter what you do, they're going to beat your ass, right? So the safest thing to do is to do nothing. Freeze. Do you see where I'm going with that? So it's all a way to keep us safe. So do not make yourself wrong for however your 4Fs are. And sometimes we're a combination. You know, it's not always just, you know, I'm one or the other. It's like sometimes we'll be a fawner and we'll be a freezer, or we'll be a fighter and a fleer, or, you know, whatever keeps us safe, guys, whatever keeps us safe. Don't beat yourself up. So I think the most important thing with triggers is realizing they are coming from the amygdala that cannot tell the difference between the past and the present, or even an imagined future. So you have to remind yourself you're safe and to breathe. You are okay. You are an adult. So I think personally, this is just me, that a lot of this stuff comes from the inner child. When we were at the mercy, if we were raised by abusers, we were at their mercy. I can't tell you the number of times, again, it's in my book, if you want to know what I went through, what's wrong with your dad, I can't tell you the number of times that I would, you know, read how my dad was when he came home, and he was usually not in a good mood, obviously, you know, and he was very, very abusive, and it was terrifying living with him, because you literally never knew. He was like a loose cannon. You know, literally a loose cannon. You never knew what was going to set him off. The littlest things. He would look for reasons to beat you, you know, which I'm just kind of like, that is no way to live. What the fuck is wrong with you? Well, now I know. But, you know, it's like, yeah. And so it comes from our inner child when we were absolutely helpless, hopeless, living in a dysfunctional, toxic family and having absolutely no advocates and no fucking way out. That's a scary fucking place to be. Seriously. So a lot of the triggers come from when we were little, if we were raised in an abusive relationship. Now, if we weren't raised in an abusive relationship, but we were in a romantic relationship or a boss relationship or a friendship that was toxic, then it's a little bit different, and it might be a little bit easier to deal with, but it's really important. How old do you feel right now when you're triggered? How old do you feel? For me, I'd say I was probably about 9, maybe 10, when I was watching the movie Rocket Man, and that scene came up, and I was just like, you know, because that's when my dad was the most abusive. That's when he turned it on me. He had previously turned it on all my other sisters. So, you know what I'm saying? So how old are you? Work on that age range. Give your little one inside of you tools and comfort, and let them know you are advocating for them, that nobody, I don't care who the fuck they think they are, is going to harm you ever again. This is where the inner child imagery really is important. You know, going to someplace safe, calling your inner child to you, whatever age it is that got really triggered. Set them on your lap, hug them, kiss their forehead, tell them how amazing they are. There's a little bit of guided imagery type of thing. And then let them know, I got your 6, kid. I got your 6. I got your back. I am not going to let anybody harm you ever again. Why? Because I say so. I am the boss. They are not the boss anymore. I am the boss. Do you see where I'm going with that? You're going to have to really comfort your inner child and work on those triggers. What triggered you when you were a kid? What scared you when you were a kid? You know, for me, it was the unpredictability, or even, it wasn't even so much the unpredictability. You knew what he was going to do, and you knew it was going to happen. You just weren't sure when. You know what I'm saying? And that, and watching Rocket Man, it was the same thing. It was like, oh, danger, Will Robinson, danger, danger, danger. Because I could tell the dad was ramping up to be a fucking asshole. And I'm just like, God, I could see it coming. You know what I mean? And it's like, we could see it coming, but we couldn't really do much about it because we were kids. And the few times that I did call my dad out on it, guess what ended up happening? Yeah, I'd wake up on the other side of the room going, what? You know, because he'd hit me. So fight, flight, freeze, or fawn is just our way of staying safe when we were being abused. So freezing has its place, guys. It does. Because if you literally could not move, no matter what you did, you were going to get it. And freezing kept you safe. Congratulations, you made it to adulthood. If fleeing kept you safe, congratulations, you made it to adulthood. If fighting kept you safe, congratulations, you made it to adulthood. If fawning kept you safe, congratulations, you made it to adulthood. Give yourself some credit. You're here, thank God. So yeah, triggers are just a warning. They're just kind of like, oh, okay, I remember this. And it's a way to try to keep us safe. So another example I can give you is I was in a motorcycle accident in 2010. And I thought, about a year later, I was like, oh, I'm ready to get back up on a motorcycle again. Let me go do that. So I go to the dealership. I put my hand on the exact same model, and I had a full-blown panic attack, at which point I went, yeah, I think my motorcycle riding days are done. Okay, thank you. And I did not try again. So I may at some point, but, so that's a physical kind of like, whoa, remember you were in an accident and you broke your wrist and this was not good. And my amygdala was like, no, So it's just trying to show us where we have been harmed, where we have been hurt. The triggers can be, and especially when we just freshly leave a relationship, they're everywhere. They are literally everywhere, guys. I mean, and especially if we're in a romantic relationship with somebody or friendship with somebody or, whatever, there's very few things that they have not, what's the word I'm looking for? Touched, that they have not had a hand in. And so everything's going to be either a reminder or a trigger. And you got to watch for that. You don't want to go walking down the primrose path. You also don't want to be hyper vigilant and crazy making the whole time either, which is why it's important to write your triggers down and start confronting each one of them. Is this a valid fear or not? Is this something I really need to respond to or not? Is this something I need to confront? Is this something I need to handle? Is this something? So this is kind of like, I think this is kind of like why I don't put up with bullies in person or anywhere else, because with my dad, I couldn't confront him. It wasn't safe because I was a kid. So now it's like when I see bullies and I see bullying happening, I confront, because it's like, bitch, not on my dime, not on my dime, not on my time. So no. So, like a few months ago when that kid was beating up the other kid, in the green space, it was like, no, I'm not going to put up with this. I'm not going to allow this. So you start confronting stuff and you start taking your power back and you start realizing you're not powerless. You're not. It just feels that way when you're in the middle of all of these triggers. So it's really important to write them all down and start challenging them. Figure out how old you are when you are in the middle of being triggered. That is the key, because that's when we felt powerless. Or if it was adult, why were you feeling powerless? What was going on? What was happening? How can you take your power back? So in those cases, if it's an adult thing and it's not an inner child thing, those are the great times to write those go fuck you letters. It's like, okay, asshole, here's the trigger you gave me. Fuck you. I'm not playing. I'm not going to be triggered anymore. Or if I am, I'm going to take my power back. Fuck the fuckity fuck out of fucking fuck you, asshole. Go to hell. Goodbye. Right? So you take your power back. So the books that will help with this, the Self-Esteem Workbook by Glenn Schiraldi, You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero, The Disease to Please, Harriet Breaker, Boundaries, Self-Esteem. People who love themselves do not put up with shit. They just don't. And when we are triggered, we do not make ourselves wrong. That is the biggest thing, guys. Do not make yourselves wrong. There is a reason that our amygdala is going, and it's because it reminds us of a time that we have been harmed, and it's trying to keep us safe. May not always be the most helpful, but it's trying to keep us safe. So that's really important to then go, okay, what's the danger? What am I getting? What's activating the amygdala? What do I need to do to challenge this and to take my power back so that this trigger has no more power over me? Boom. Does that make sense? So that's what I want you guys to do. Okay, so to review, we all have PTSD. Congratulations. Yay! So, and ours is complex, meaning it happened over and over and over again. And we've got hypervigilance, meaning we're always on alert kind of thing. John makes fun of me because I'm always checking to see where the exits are, and I'm always checking to see who's around and, all of that. And why? Because my dad would literally come out of nowhere to hit me. He'd come up with some bullshit excuse to hit me. So yeah, I'm always kind of like, okay, who's around? What's happening? Where's the problem? Who's the asshole in the room? That kind of thing. I have learned to tone that the fuck down over the years because I used to be really bad about that. But it is a way for us to stay safe. But we don't want to be living up here in hypervigilance all the time, because it's kind of like, how do I explain this? It's like healthy people that have not had a trauma. God bless them. Boy, I'd love to know what that's like. If they have not had a trauma, their baseline is kind of more down here, right? They're aware, awake, looking around, making sure everything's safe, but they're not like, oh my God, 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 which is what we are up here. So it's a matter of identifying our safety, identifying our triggers. What were we thinking? What were we feeling? What did we smell? Sometimes it's a smell. So I was working with a person who had been raped, and she told me that the scent of Irish Spring was enough to send her into an absolute tizzy. And she'd been staying at like some Airbnb, and all they had was Irish Spring. So, things like that. But then it's a matter of dealing with that age that you were when the harm happened. Okay, I'm safe. I'm okay. It's a bar of soap. It cannot harm me. Yes, it does remind me of this horrible event, and I am okay. So we had to work on that kind of thing. So it's a matter of making yourself safe and taking your power back and doing the go fuck you letter to the abuser, no matter who that abuser was, no matter what they've done to you, including the rapist, and that's what you do. That's how you start dealing with those triggers. The key to dealing with triggers is challenging them, taking your power back. And when you're in the middle of being triggered, breathe. Breathing, self-soothing, and self-soothing that inner child who is being triggered at that point. Okay, let's start doing the questions. I hope that answered the questions. Let me go over here. Okay. Can we use, and before we do that, again, SusannaQuintana.com, okay? SusannaQuintana.com. She can go across state lines. She can go internationally. She is literally an expert in dealing with narcissists, and she is great with dealing with divorces. She can help you figure out what you need to answer and what you need to not answer and all of that sort of good stuff. So SusannaQuintana.com. Okay. Can we use the body's inability to tell thoughts from reality to envision healthy things and help ourselves? If so, how? Yes, absolutely. So it's kind of like a vision board. So you can imagine things being happy and whole and how you want things to look. So yes, absolutely. The brain is amazing, guys. I cannot stress this enough. Where your brain goes, your body will follow. Okay. So it's kind of like driving a car. Where your eyes go, so does the car. So you want to, this is why, thank you. This is why I teach positive affirmations. This is why I teach positive self-regard. Why? Because what you tell yourself is what we end up making happen. So again, I was working with a person who was convinced they were going to trip and fall when they did their auditions on stage. And so I kept telling them, it's like, don't focus in on that. Then that's what's going to happen. Well, eventually went and did an audition, tripped and fell on stage. There it is. The brain goes, okay, you're worrying about this. I'm going to make this happen so that you no longer have to worry about it. Does that make sense? So where your brain goes, your body's going to follow. So this is why positive affirmations, positive self-regard, the self-esteem workbook, you are a badass. These are all ways to start getting the brain healthier. So in other words, people who are unhealthy, like really mentally unhealthy, they wake up in the morning and their first thoughts are negative, which is why, in AA, gratitude is key. You've got to have gratitude. You wake up in the morning and you stretch and you feel your body and you go, oh my God, I'm breathing. This is awesome. And then you go to the bathroom, brush your teeth, do whatever you're going to do. You come back to the full length mirror and you do the mirror work. This is where mirror work comes in. Hi, good to see you. Have a wonderful day. I give you permission to like yourself. I give you permission to write down your triggers. I give you permission to remember your triggers. Do you see where I'm going with that? It's positive. positive, positive, positive. So yes, this is why we start working on the positive stuff. We have the ability to heal our own bodies. We really do. It's like, it's amazing when people, and I'm not saying magic thinking like, oh my God, I can, oh my gosh. I had this one friend once in college and she belonged to some sort of cult, which I'm going to be talking about next week. Not that particular cult, but that particular communal narcissist. And their whole thing was, if you live wealthfully, wealth will come to you. And I'm like, no, bitch, you're going to be broke. There's like positive thinking, and then there's magic thinking. So positive thinking is different from magic thinking because it's things that we can actually do. So you envision, for example, an audition going well, or you envision, for example, a speech going well. So whenever I have to do public speaking, I always run through it in my head first, and I envision how I would like to do it and what I'm going to say and how it's going to go and what do I need to say and da 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 da. Do you see where I'm going with that? So that it's natural when it comes out in virtual and in real time. Does that make sense? So it's really important to use the positive affirmations, use the positive self-regard. People who love themselves do not put up with abuse. And when we first come out of an abusive relationship, we don't love ourselves. We don't know how. We don't, because if it was a family of origin, they're constantly telling us, that we're worthless and this, that, and the other thing. If it was a romantic relationship, they were constantly mind fucking us and doing all sorts of gaslighting. So it's really important to get that solid base of self-esteem and boundaries. Deal breakers, hugely important. So you start envisioning what you're going to do when you're triggered. You start envisioning what you're going to do if you hear a phrase. You start envisioning what you're going to do if you find yourself watching a show and you're just like, that's one way to work through it. So yeah, absolutely. Okay, I find myself freezing and dissociating by watching TV series on Netflix to distract myself from reality. It helps me to not face what I went through. Any advice on how to deal with this? Well, if the TV shows are causing you to dissociate, I would say probably don't watch them right now. Maybe do something else to distract you from reality. And the question is, what reality are you being distracted from? If it's politics, I say take up a hobby, but if it's dealing with you, if it's dealing with your emotions, if it's dealing with you moving forward, no, you don't want to avoid that. You don't, and a lot of us, how do I explain this? So there's different stages of consciousness when we come into therapy or when we come into really working on ourselves. So there is unconscious incompetence, right? So unconscious incompetence is us just running into walls and not understanding why. We just, ow, it hurts, and I don't know why it hurts, and I don't know why I'm running into walls. Okay, that's unconscious incompetence. Then you come up to conscious incompetence, okay? And that's when you're like, oh, okay, I'm running all these programs that was, given to me from my dysfunctional family. Okay, this is uncomfortable. I don't like it. And I'm still kind of running into walls, but I want it to change, right? Okay, conscious incompetence. Then you come up to conscious competence. This is when you're actually working on all of these issues and you're like, okay, I need to do the self-esteem book. I need to do this. I need to do that. And I am doing it and I'm working through it. This is the working through it stage. And eventually you get to unconscious competence where it's like shit happens and you just automatically deal with it without even having to think about it. So that's eventually where you want to get. So avoiding things is not a good idea, and distracting from reality, I understand there's a lot of weird shit going on in the world right now, but what you want to do is, rather than distract yourself and rather than spend time on Netflix or TV series, you want to be grabbing all of these books that I recommend. You knew where I was going with this. And you want to start working on you. Why? Because you are worthy of your own love, your own time, and your own attention. And now is the perfect fucking time to do it. I mean, personally, I'm stuck at home because Arizona's kind of exploding with like coronavirus shit. So I'm working on me. I'm working on my house. I'm working on hobbies. I'm working on things that I have not had a chance to do in ages. And this is the perfect time. And with stuff that I find annoying, I do what I can, and then you have to let the rest go and you focus in on healing you. You are worthy. Don't distract yourself with Netflix. Don't distract yourself with TV series. Start working all of the books. And guys, listen, there are therapists online that you can get, but just make sure that you get a good therapist, and it needs to be a trauma therapist. It needs to be somebody who understands narcissistic abuse, because trust me, there's a whole bunch of fucking bozos out there that do not. So, but you can find a therapist online. I am not doing in person until this COVID thing is handled in one way, shape, or form. So I'm doing online, but I can only do in Arizona. Thank you, stupid Arizona laws. So find a good therapist, find a good trauma therapist. Don't avoid. Stop watching the Netflix, stop watching the TV show, start working on you. You are so worth your own time. Seriously. You're going to thank me. Trust me on this one. And it's so funny because people are like, but, I don't want to think about the abuse, but, I don't want to deal with the triggers, but. And here's the thing, guys. I've said it before, I'm going to say it again. The only way out is through. The only way out is through. You have to confront the triggers. You have to confront the abuse. You have to work your way through it and understand it was not you. It was them, because healthy, normal people do not abuse. Okay. So work on you. You're worth it. You're worth it. All right. Question. I very often wake up crying my eyes out without knowing why. How do I handle that? That is very common. So I just want to validate that. So that is a very common thing. I used to do that a lot when I was a teenager. I would wake up just sobbing and I'd be like, what the fuck? So it was probably a dream we had, or there was something going on, that we were thinking about that was kind of mulling around. If you can, write it out or draw it out. So not everybody gets stuff out of writing. Some people are more creative, and sometimes drawing it will help kind of, get us to think about, well, what was I thinking? What was I feeling? Where did this come from? So try drawing, try writing, try anything, to help jog your memory about what were you dreaming? What were you thinking? What was going on? And often that's just the way we deal with all of the trauma that we went through. You're not crazy. I just want to validate that. Crying is cathartic. Every single mammal on the face of the planet tears up when they feel pain. So we feel pain because we've been abused. And so that is a common thing. So how do you handle it? You just don't resist it. You validate it. Okay, I woke up crying again today. Let me see if I can figure out why. Or what was the color of the dream? What was the feeling? What was the main sense? Is it a sense of loss? Is it a sense of unfairness? Is it a sense of, what's the sense with that? So oftentimes it's a sense of loss or unfairness or, something, and then just write. Or color or draw, I think that's my suggestion for that. And you don't resist it. You're normal. Almost every single survivor of abuse has done that. So yeah. Why do I often forget conversations I have with abusive people that trigger me? I blank out when I get overwhelmed. Okay, so that is a form of dissociation. And that's what we do when we're overwhelmed. Think about it. When little kids, universally, when a child has been abused, sexually, physically, whatever, they don't remember key aspects of the abuse. It's a way to survive. It's a way to handle the unhandleable. Handleable? You know what I mean? Deal with the undealable. It's something so horrific that our brain just kind of goes, oh, no, thank you. Peace out. So, boop, and we kick it out because it's overwhelming. So, again, I would strongly suggest get with a good trauma therapist. Work on self-esteem, work on boundaries, work on not dealing with abusive people. It's like I said, I don't put up with abusers. I don't. In everyday life, professionally, whatever, I don't. I absolutely do not. And life is too damn short. So you've got to get to the point where you can have somebody be abusive in front of you and you're detached and you're not taking it personally and you're able to stand in the face of that and go, you know what? No, thank you. And turn around and walk out consciously. So I would strongly suggest getting with a damn good trauma therapist. So that's a sign of trauma. It's a sign of trauma. You're not wrong. All right. I began therapy at the end of next month. Earliest appointment. I'm really struggling right now. Any suggestions to calm the anxiety and intense sadness? So one way to help with anxiety and sadness, and especially, like I said, things are weird in the world right now. Journaling, getting it out of your head, getting it onto paper, and then burning it. This is the part that everybody forgets to do. Burn it. Let it the fuck go. Hang on. Or reach out to trusted friends, trusted family. Keyword trusted. So somebody who is actually going to be listening to you and comprehending and supportive. The other thing you can do is reach out to support groups. But again, and I'm going to talk more about this next week, in a lot of support groups, you're going to find a lot of trolls. Don't get me started. Anyway, but it would be good to find support of some sort, whether that's trusted family, trusted friends, or if you can find a good support group that does really good admins that just jump on the trolls like that, that would be really good. Writing and burning. So our biggest mistake is that we keep things. So like, people write down all the horrible things that happen to them and then they keep them. And I'm sitting here going, burn them. You need to get your brain in the habit of letting shit go. That does not mean you forget it. It just means that you're letting it go. You're letting it go, right? It's still there. It happened. Doesn't change the fact that it happened, but you're detaching. So that's what the burning it does. That's what the writing it and burning it, or writing it and shredding it, or writing it and, I don't know, burying it in the garden or whatever. That's what that helps do. Plus the fact too, what I really keep reminding people of is that when you keep a journal, you want to get rid of all the negative stuff, because when you're 90 million years old, sitting in the old age home in the rocker, you don't want to be like, oh, that was terrible. Oh, God, my life sucked. Oh, my God, this is awful. What the fuck? You don't want to be that. You want to be like, oh, my God, I remember that trip. That was awesome. Oh, that was the time I went out with the great grandkids. What the fuck? That was awesome. Oh, my God. Oh, and I remember that conversation with my nephew. Oh, that was hysterical. Oh, my. Do you see where I'm going with that? So yeah, and humor and happiness and joy are huge, guys. Allow yourself to feel good. That's the one thing I forgot to talk about. So the abusers want us to feel like shit because they feel like shit. And how dare we be happy when they're not? So feeling good, this is why I use humor in this, guys. If you're laughing, you're learning, you're remembering, you're keeping things there because it's fun. So for us, getting our sense of humor back, the devil runs from laughter. They don't like it when we're happy. So it's really important to remind yourself you win every single time you allow yourself to be happy. Let me just say that again. You win every single time you allow yourself to be happy. Be happy. Be well. Okay. So friends, trusted, family, trusted, support group would be great. Writing and burning. So yeah, and that's really amazing that you can't get in sooner than that. The other thing you could try, and I don't know what country you're from. So what I'm hearing from a lot of people in the UK is that the NHS, National Health System, I guess is what it is terrible. And it's really hard to get appointments and things like that. You may want to consider a life coach. You may want to consider something else, so to supplement or to help with. So there that is. Okay. As a kid, I was made to feel ugly and less than by my narc parents. I get triggered by good-looking women and go into fawn mode. How do I get to a place where I find myself beautiful? The Self-Esteem Workbook by Glenn Schiraldi. You look in the mirror. You do mirror work. Hi, good to see you. Have a great day. You know what? I really like you. You are a beautiful person, inside and out. Have a wonderful day, and then leave. So we're undoing the messages. So whatever messages that we got from our abusive parents, so in this case, they obviously made it about your looks. So what you do is you have to undo it. Now, are you going to believe it when you're looking in the mirror and telling yourself that you're beautiful inside and out? No, because your internal critic is going to pop up and go, oh my God, that's not true. Mom and dad said blah, 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 blah. Thank you for your input. This is what you're going to have to do. Thank you for your input. Shut the fuck up. Why? Because you say so. You're the boss of this. This is not the boss of you. And then you replace it immediately with the polar opposite. My parents were wrong. Oh my God. What a scary thought. My parents were wrong. Holy shit. Wow. My parents were wrong. I am beautiful. You replace it with that. You become your own parent. You reparent yourself. You take any and all negative, nasty bullshit that your abusive parents shoved into your head, and you're basically cleaning out that horse stall, and you're getting rid of all the horse shit that they shoved in there. And you're replacing it with healthy, clean flooring. Does that make sense? So you're going to undo that. Mirror work, daily. Self-Esteem Workbook by Glenn Schiraldi. You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero. You're going to work on mirror work. You're going to start loving your body. And you start by doing that. And the other thing you can do is a 1-minute brag. Okay, I don't know if I've talked about this recently. So a 1-minute brag is where you set a timer, and in front of the mirror, you say everything good about yourself that you can possibly think of. Just boom, 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 boom. Physical, mental, emotional, spiritually, the whole thing. And you just remind yourself, it's like, I am good. I am pretty. I am this. I am that. I am. Undoing all of the bullshit. Now, this thing is going to pop up and start screaming at you because it's the internal critic, and you have to keep putting it down and replacing it with the positive. So work on that. Mirror work is going to be huge. Is it going to be uncomfortable? Oh, fuck yeah. When we start confronting the lies that mom, dad, the abuser, whoever that was, shoved into our head, this thing is going to go nuts. Fine, let it. Shut it off. We keep replacing. There you go. You got this. Okay, where was I? Okay. Question. I have borderline personality disorder. I've been doing DBT for 3 months. Is it normal to be triggered by the very thought of being angry? Yes. So let's think about this. I don't know about you, but my dad's big thing was, don't you dare be angry. He was oh my God. He was such a sexist POS. He really was. Women shouldn't be angry. I'm sorry, you're an abuser. Shut the fuck up. So yeah, we get triggered by the idea of being angry. We do. Because either we've been told, I'll give you something to be angry about, and then they abuse the crap out of us, or we've been told that anger is a futile emotion. What the fuck does that mean? Fuck off. You know what I'm saying? It's like they try to invalidate a natural emotion for us. So anger in and of itself is not a bad thing. Anger is the bodyguard of the softer emotions. So this anger lets us know that there's something softer underneath, which is usually hurt. So anger is motivated from hurt. It's motivated from fear. It's motivated from hurt. So anger is a symptom of actually being hurt. So when we get triggered by that, it's because we're getting close to the real core issue. So I invite you to make friends with your anger. Don't rage. You don't want to do that. But you do want to figure out, where's the hurt? What's underneath the anger? What is it? Where did you get hurt? Who hurt you? And how can you heal this? Not with the abuser, obviously. That's not about them anymore. It's about you. So anger is a good emotion. It is an emotion that tells us where we've been hurt. And that's important because sometimes we don't know where we've been hurt. So for example, when I was much younger, my friends used to joke, this is Chris happy. This is Chris sad. This is Chris just relaxing. I was angry all the fucking time, because I had abusive parents. And what I didn't understand is that I was protecting that soft underbelly, that hurt of all that pain and all that suffering that was inflicted by my dad, because he was a douchebag. So figure out where the hurt is. Anger is not a bad emotion. It's what we do with it that can make it good or bad. So when we rage outwards and we harm somebody else, that's not good. But if we can go, God, I'm so fucking angry. Okay, where did I get hurt? Where did I get hurt? Who hurt me? And then dive into that. That's where the healing is. You can do it. I have faith in you. Talk to your therapist about that. I think that's really important. So talk to your therapist about that. What is it about the anger that triggers you? Is it the fear? Is it, what's going on? That is a hugely important topic to talk to your therapist about. And do try to figure out what is underneath the anger. What is underneath the fear of the anger? What is that about? Investigate, write, journal, get it out of your head, get it onto paper, trot it out to the barbecue, burn it, or take it into your therapist. You can do this. Okay. How do you stop your older children from using your triggers to manipulate you to get their way? Ooh, damn. Well, okay, this is a boundary. This is a deal breaker, guys. This is a deal breaker. And it's not just older children. I would say this would be anybody who tries to use your triggers against you, or who tries to use anything against you. So remember, when we're dealing with an abuser, the first thing they want to do is they want to mine you for your deepest, darkest secrets, and or your deepest, darkest vulnerabilities, and or things that you're shameful of or have shame about. And then those fuckers will twist that shit and use it against you to try to get their way. So anybody who does that, you give them one warning and then you cut them off. Seriously. And I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's children. I don't care if it's parents. I don't care if it's a boss. I don't care if it's a friend. I don't care if it's a lover. They are showing you who they are. So this is a deal breaker. So remember, was it last week I was talking about deal breakers? God, the days are running into each other. What the hell? So that week that I was talking about deal breakers, deal breakers. This is a deal breaker. This is anybody who uses your past, uses your triggers, tries to shame you, tries to blame you. Any relationship that makes you feel guilty, fearful, guilty, obligated. And I got that backwards. Fearful, obligated, guilty. Fog. Okay, that's the abusive fog that they put us into. So when somebody's using triggers against us, you give them one warning. That is not allowed. You are being manipulative. Knock it the fuck off. No, I'm not giving in to you. Boundary. No, I'm not giving in to you. And if they keep doing it, cut them off. Cut them off. Life's too short. Cut them off. All right. Any advice for when you accidentally trigger yourself? Oh God, breathe. Just breathe. I've done that. That's why I'm laughing. It's like, breathe. Really, seriously, breathe. So, yeah, and it can happen. It can happen. So if you've triggered yourself, you just breathe and forgive yourself. That is the biggest thing, guys, is that we didn't know what we didn't know until we knew it. And now that we know it, now we can do better, right? So forgive yourself. Forgive yourself. You don't have to forgive your abuser. Your abuser can go fuck themselves sideways with an unlubricated baseball bat, preferably one with splinters. But it's really important for us to forgive ourselves. We didn't know what we didn't know until we knew it. And then once we knew it, now we can do something different. So when we trigger ourselves, just breathe and forgive you. Really important. Okay, and I think this one is going to be our last question. How do you confront a triggering person when you have a non-confrontational personality? Okay, confrontation is really kind of a learned thing. So it's really going to be, how do you confront a triggering? Okay, so it depends on the circumstances. It really does. How do you confront a triggering person when you have a non-confrontational personality? Okay, so something that someone had mentioned, I'd had people like IM me over the course of the week, or write in the comments on Facebook about triggers and stuff. And somebody had mentioned that a person kept bringing up uncomfortable things, so like the death of a pet, or an uncomfortable situation that happened, in an attempt to make them feel terrible. Fear, obligation, guilt. Hello. And that they realize that they did that. And that is a triggering person. That is somebody who is bringing up a particularly painful event that really has nothing to do with them. Like the pet's been gone for like 10 years, right? And suddenly they bring up the pet, not in a, gosh, I really miss Baba type of way, but more like a, oh, remember when they were in the hospital and blah, 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 that kind of thing, like a weird kind of like, I don't want to remember that. Thank you. Do you see where I'm going with that? So this person is showing you who they are. And do you have to confront them? Well, why? Here's the thing. You only confront people that you want to change their behavior, really. And then the question is, do you really want this person in your life? Do you really care? Now, some people do that without knowing. Okay. There are some people that just don't know any better. Again, it's just like flying monkeys. Okay. There's two types of flying monkeys. They either just are ignorant and don't know, or they are minor narcissists themselves. Same thing with triggering people. Either they're not aware that they're triggering, or they're doing it on purpose. There's only two answers here, right? So if it is somebody you care about And again, I don't know enough about the circumstances to give you a complete answer, but if this is somebody you care about, you let them know. It's like, you know what? You always do this. I really don't like it. Please don't do it again, right? Just not confrontational, not like, hey, motherfucker, not like that. But just like, hey, I've noticed that this is happening and I don't like this. I statements. I feel triggered when, or I feel angry when, or I feel disrespected when you bring up a pet that's been dead for 5 years. Please don't do that. That's a boundary. That's a boundary. And then if they cross that boundary again, be done. Be done. So confrontation is not always in your face, going at it full bore. Confrontation can be as simple as saying, no, and I mean it. Why? Because I feel disrespected when you keep bringing up painful events. I don't understand why you're doing that. 9 times out of 10, you do that and they're not going to have an answer, or they'll get very, very defensive or whatever. And if this person is always doing this, you're really going to have to ask yourself, why are you around them? What do you get out of it? And confrontation is not always a bad thing. And perhaps maybe I should do a show on confronting people. That's not a bad idea. Not next week, though. I'm working on something else next week. But, confrontation is not always, kind of thing. It can be as simple as, here's my boundary. And for them, they're going to feel like that's a confrontation because they don't like being told no. Abusers hate it when people tell them no. They can't stand it when we set up boundaries and go, don't cross that. So I want you to work on The Disease to Please by Harriet Breaker, Codependent No More by Melanie Beattie. PM Melody also did some books on that. I would have to pull those out because I can't remember their titles right now. But confrontation is not always, two rams going at it. Sometimes it's as simple as no, and here's why. I feel, I statement, angry, hurt, sad, the emotion, when you bring up this pet's death, or you keep bringing up this very painful event, and I don't understand what you're doing. I don't understand why you're doing that. Now, that will feel like a confrontation to them completely because you're just telling them no. It might feel like a confrontation to you. Now, standing up for yourself is part of self-esteem. Standing up for yourself, saying no. No, I'm not going to put up with this. No, I don't like it when you continually bring up this pet's death. Please stop. That's a boundary. So that can feel very threatening to us, having grown up with abusers, that if we told them no, what happened? For me, I would get hit, or I would get told that I'm stupid or whatever. So I think that would be a really good thing to start working on. The Disease to Please by Harriet Breaker, Codependent No More by Melanie Beattie, the books by PM Melody, anything that will help you with feeling okay and empowered to say no. You have the right to say no. You do. You have the right to tell people, you're triggering me. I don't like it. Stop it. And if they don't, they're showing you who they are. And that's when you go, no, we're done. Bye-bye. So I think that would be really good. And I think it also goes back to that fear of abandonment. I think we have a real hard time with confronting abusers sometimes because we're fearful of abandonment because they've lied to us so much. Oh, nobody will ever love you. Nobody will ever like you. Nobody will ever love you. Nobody will love you the way I did, blah, 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 blah. And so I think this is a really good opportunity, and I'm glad you brought this up, to work on confronting, but not just confronting. It's like saying no. It's okay. That doesn't make you a bad guy. It doesn't make you a bad girl. It doesn't make you a bad anything. It makes you having good boundaries. So this is a boundary issue. This is a self-esteem issue. I would get with a good trauma therapist and I would start working on some assertiveness, like really being okay being assertive. Being assertive is not bad, but I'll tell you who doesn't like it. It's the abusers. Because as soon as somebody says no to them, they come unglued. You're a bitch. You're a bastard. You're this. You guns come flying out. Okay. So I think it would be a really good idea to get with a good therapist and start working on some assertiveness and self-esteem. Self-esteem, boundaries, assertiveness. You have a right to say no. And that is your mantra. I have a right to say no. I have a right to have boundaries. I have a right to not be triggered all the time. You do. All right, kids, we are past 1 o'clock. All right. Next week, what I want to talk about again is I want to talk about cults. I want to talk about my brain just left my body. What the communal narcissist? Thank you. Communal narcissist. And I also want to talk about covert narcissists. So I want to go a little bit deeper into both of those because I've noticed during this time period, there's a lot of that shit happening. There's a lot of hoovers going on continually. Be aware of the hoovers because we're in this whole pandemic thing. I am pretty sure, no, I know for sure, all of these hoovers are happening where the exes are coming back and going, oh, well, we should get together because, it's the end of the world. No, it's not. And even if it was, I would not want to spend it with you. So, yeah. So next week is going to be covert and communal narcissists. Okay. We're going to talk more about that. I think the week after that, I'm going to do one on confrontation and why it's not a bad thing, but how we've been trained that it is. So, all right. So next week, communal narcissists, covert narcissists. Have a great week, guys. Please continue to be careful and safe. Wear a mask, wash your hands. Don't do anything stupid because I don't want to lose any of you. So be good, and I will talk to you. Where is my cursor? It left. Okay, there it is. I will talk to you next week on communal narcissists and covert narcissists, or what did she call it? Fragile or covert. So that's what I want to talk about. All right, guys. Be good. Talk to you later. Bye.